What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Review Space, and today we are gonna take a look. We're gonna review last night's episode of Monday Night Raw. Alright, so one of the most coolest things that happened last night was actually Cena coming out to his old entrance, his classic theme song, and his Thugonomics gimmick, and it was just a cool thing. He spat out a freestyle written rap, and it was actually a really, fairly entertaining promo, and it was somewhat of a nostalgic moment. It was cool to see Cena back, like the old school Cena. I'm not the biggest fan of Cena anyway, but it was just kind of like, wow, this is what John Cena should have been all these years, and it was just a lot more edgy than anything we've seen. He even looked different. The expression on his face was more aggressive. He had a certain swag that was missing from him for so long, and it was just a really cool promo. Definitely one of the best highlights of the night. And I mean, we missed the fitted cap, the chain, the throwback jersey, that whole getup. That's like, we need that kind of Cena back, and unfortunately, I think this might be the only time that we'll ever get to see this thing. Alright, so we have a match up next. Sheamus against Dolph Ziggler. Yes, and this is, Sheamus actually ended up just completely decimating Dolph Ziggler, as you can expect. Daniel, Bryan, and AJ watching from the skybox. Bryan being a douchebag as usual. Basically just getting more heat on himself as a heel. Sheamus goes over, and he looks strong. Alright, so next up we got another match. Otunga and Mark Henry against Santino Marella in a handicap match. So Santino's by himself. Originally it was supposed to be a mixed tag team match, but John Laurinaitis changed it up. Teddy Long comes out, he pushes John Laurinaitis, and he rescues Aksana because she was with Santino. Santino gets squashed, as you can expect. Kofi and R-Truth, they come out, they attempt to save Santino and help him, but Mark Henry and David Otunga, they just dominate both of them, and they looked like they were just the stronger couple, and they Mark Henry especially. And then John Laurinaitis announces that Mark Henry is the new member of Team Laurinaitis. I guess they're supposed to have some kind of Team Laurinaitis versus Team Teddy Long at WrestleMania, and whoever wins gets to control it, become the GM for both brands, I guess. Alright, next up we have a couple of backstage segments. Zack Ryder, he claimed calling Eve all week and accused her of, are you playing me? Are you just screwing around with me? You're just playing me. Eve reassures Zack Ryder that she just wants to stay friends with benefits, and so she kind of agrees that, hey, I'll see you dinner or whatever. Beth Phoenix interrupts, and then she says that she can go after Zack Ryder, but Eve actually got defensive, and she's like, no. So that was kind of a weird thing. Is Eve really attracted to Zack Ryder, or does she just want Zack Ryder to herself, so she can sort of have, she's got other motives, she's got other plans, and she just doesn't want Beth Phoenix to interfere with the whole thing. Alright, we have another segment. The Miz and his Psych co-star. Psych is supposed to be some television show, and they talked to John Laurinaitis. They were plugging the TV show, or something like that, and then the Miz was scheduled to face CM Punk later. The Psych co-star was just kind of weird. He was making like pseudo homosexual references. It was just kind of weird. Alright, what else we got? Brodus Clay returns. Oh snap, Brodus Clay comes back, and he squashes Jinder Mahal with 2 moves. He did the headbutt, and then he did the splash to the pin combination, and that was it. But it was nice to see him back. Really cool to see big Brodus Clay. Alright, next up we have a segment, a promo between HBK and The Undertaker. And honestly, it was just another plug for the WrestleMania 28 Hell in a Cell match with Triple H. Alright, so next up we have another match. The Miz taking on CM Punk. Punk predictably won this. I mean, it's no surprise. But at the end, Chris Jericho appears on the Titantron and he cuts this sobering promo. And I use the word sobering in quotation because it was basically about how Punk became straight edge. And how did he become straight edge? Is because, according to Chris Jericho, Punk's father was a drunkard. He was a lush, drunk person, an alcoholic basically, and these words seemed to really affect CM Punk, and he was just, it looked like he was emotionally shaken, and he just walked off looking really, really psychologically affected. Alright, so could this have an effect on their match at WrestleMania 28? I mean, obviously that's what they're trying to go for. It looks like Chris Jericho is now attacking Punk with words, and what he's good at is cutting that promo and going after Punk verbally, as opposed to just attacking him, jumping him from behind or something. You know, I mean, it just seems like this is what Punk needs. This is what Punk, it's almost like, I don't want to say his Achilles heel or his weakness, but it seems like if you want to really go after Punk, you go after him verbally, mentally, as opposed to some kind of physical attack, because it just seems like Punk is a cerebral guy. I mean, Punk is one of these, he's an intelligent wrestler, and if you want to go after him, you make him think. And Chris Jericho is, I think, smart enough to go after CM Punk that way, as opposed to just jumping him from behind. I think this is going to be somewhat controversial, where it's like, oh, he's an alcoholic, and then they're going to deal with this whole alcoholic issue thing where, you know, alcohol abuse. It almost reminds me of when Scott Hall they would like focus on Scott Hall back in the WCW era, where he was like doing, you know, his alcoholic thing, and they were making fun of his alcoholism, and they were just sort of making fun of that. But this one seems to be a bit more serious, and this one seems to be a bit more, it's like a catalyst to this match. It's an added element where now Chris Jericho is after Punk personally. I predicted Punk might retaliate back in some kind of, now he's become a complete sympathy character now, and obviously the crowd was, you know, cheering for Punk, and now that sympathy, like, oh snap, you know, Punk is doing good, and he's not an alcoholic, and so we're gonna root for him, and Chris Jericho is a complete heel. Alright, next up we have another match where Randy Orton squashes Jack Swagger, and this was actually this was the final match of the night, and this basically just to prep for the Kane match, WrestleMania 28, which I'm not really excited for. This feud just sort of came out of nowhere. And the final segment was The Rock's rock concert, and The Rock was singing, and he played the guitar, you know, circa 2003, and he was just taking consistent jabs at John Cena. It was actually a very long, but it was a very funny segment. It was entertaining. And then it ended with kind of this awkward Queen karaoke type of thing where he was reading off the Titantron, the lyrics. That one was awkward. It just seemed like he couldn't... he kind of lost the crowd a little bit because it was awkward. And we went from watching The Rock play the guitar and it was funny, and it just seemed like, oh, hey, you know, The Rock's just mocking Cena, having fun. And then he went karaoke. And then that one was just a little bit different. You heard the instrumental, and it just seemed like, oh, he can't really sing. Like, The Rock is not a good singer. He actually is a bad singer. Because when he tries to sing a Freddie Mercury type of song, and then he just doesn't have the tunes, he doesn't have that vocal power. The Rock was, I think, it just seemed like we were watching a bad karaoke. But it was still overall a funny segment because the lyrics was still after John Cena and whatnot. As far as who won, Rock versus John Cena's rap, I actually enjoyed the Cena rap. It was short, it was sweet, it was fun to see him come back. The Rock concert was funny with the lyrics, but it just seemed like sometimes it was a little bit... He definitely got the crowd in the palm of his hands. At first it seemed like, oh, like, can he really do this? But he won the crowd, you know, Cleveland rocks and all that stuff, and it was definitely a good play on words. It was just the ending, the karaoke thing was just kind of terrible. So overall, it was probably a lot closer than some people might think, because Cena's thing was so short. How can you compare, like, his, you know, 2-minute rap to The Rock's freaking 10-minute promo? Anyway, I thought it was a good episode of Raw. It was very entertaining, and I enjoyed pretty much the entire thing. I mean, it was definitely one of the best Raws I've seen in a really long time. It was very entertaining, and I mean, this might be the best Raw leading up to WrestleMania. It might actually fall off from here. Like, it's just gonna drop off in entertainment value. It's gonna get more intense as the weeks go by, but this seems like a really fun episode. I don't know, again, like John Cena coming back as the rapping thing. I can only hope that he comes back as the rapping thing again, but I just don't think so. So, I mean, that's it for this episode of the Review Space. Again, a very entertaining episode of Raw. So, until next time, ciao.